Lords of the Fallen released in 2023, and a lot of people were excited for this. They wanted to have the interconnected world of Dark Souls 1, and it looked like a nice Souls-like that might even compete with FromSoft. Now, the game was extremely mixed in terms of opinions from people when it released, mainly because of the optimization. The game ran terribly, frame rate was awful, there was glitches all over the place, but the devs have been seriously hard at work since the game released, and even on release with all these issues, I had a fantastic time with the game. But besides optimization, the devs have went in and added boss rush modes, balancing to the enemies and bosses, a randomizer so where you could edit modifiers so when you go into a new game, it's like playing a different game with enemy placements. There's a lot of cool stuff to Lords of the Fallen, so I wanted to have another review in 2024 to hopefully show some Souls fans, hey, there's another really banger game out there besides Lies of P that might give you a really good itch next to FromSoft's titles. Now, the biggest issue when this game released in terms of optimization was the enemy density and boss difficulty. See, you would go through the areas and they would be really hard. There'd be a lot of enemies, you'd have to get through the areas and you'd be like, oh my god, finally. And you'd get to the boss, ready to have a nice, exciting boss challenge, and you would usually steamroll them. So there was a big difficulty unbalance with the areas being hard and the bosses being easy. So what did they do to remedy that? Well, if you go play the game now, the bosses will actually kick your ass, and they did it in a pretty good way. They didn't just buff the damage an insane amount. You basically have to actually learn the boss's movesets a bit more. You would go in and you would just smack the hell out of them before, but now you actually have to pay attention to their moves, and you might die a few times to go in and learn their movesets, which I really enjoyed. They also lowered the mob density from around 50 to 70% and chose where to place these enemies to make the gaming experience more better. And originally, I thought the level design was honestly pretty awesome. It's not as good as FromSoft, but you will definitely find some shortcuts that'll take you to areas and you'll be like, how the hell did I end up back here? The interconnected world is really dope with a variety of different aesthetically pleasing areas, and there's no loading screens or anything. And then don't forget the Umbral Realm where you take out your lamp and there's a whole nother world beneath the world that you could find secrets and other enemies. So there's a lot of good here, and the new balancing they've done over these updates make the experience a lot better. Now, again, I mentioned the optimization. There was some boss fights that I would go into and my frame rate would jump from 60 down to 30. I was playing on PS5, and now it pretty much holds 60 FPS most of the time. This game is a little weird where like the longer you're playing it, it seems like the frame rate goes lower, but it's very minor compared to the beginning of the release where it would just tank. So the game just looks really pretty now because the frame rate is stable. So when you're running around, you could actually enjoy the beautiful environment, and the pop-in and weird bugs, like sometimes trees and foliage would just disappear. That's all gone. So the game's presentation in general looks a lot better, and that leaves a big taste in people's mouths. You know, in the beginning, it looked gross, so the game didn't get as good of reviews as it should have, but people going through it for the first time now might be like, whoa, this is pretty cool in certain areas. Another way they made the game just cleaner and more stable in general is the sound design and movement of the characters. So let's start with the sound design. The parry sound when this released was disgusting. It was like a tiny little twinkle. It made no sense. It didn't really feel like a parry, but now it actually sounds pretty good. They went in and edited the sound design, and in general, this game has wither damage, which is kind of like Bloodborne's rally mechanic, where if you block, you're going to take a little bit of damage that you could get back by smacking your enemy. And now it's more fun to do this because they edited the sound design so much. And another thing, in normal Souls games, you have to commit to your attacks a lot more than Lords of the Fallen does. Lords of the Fallen is very cracky. Like, you're fast in this game, and you could dodge roll out of your combos really quickly. Now, I'm not like a big hater of that. I think it's fine because I think the combat system is pretty good and varied. So being a little different than FromSoft is fine. We need variation. But the problem was you would like lunge off cliffs or just go to areas you don't want to because you're too fast. So they've implemented a thing where if you're attacking, you will not fall off a ledge. And other things like that, again, to keep the game stable and just your experience overall cleaner. Another big problem on release that I didn't mind too much, but I know a lot of people had problems with, was the vestige seed issue. Now, vestiges are like your bonfires basically, and placing them down in areas, you basically make your own run to the bosses. You have your main bonfires, but then you have these little ones you could place throughout, and you need those seeds. So they lowered the amount of souls it costs to buy those seeds, which is good. They upped the amounts once they're dropped, which is good, because before, if you had none for a long time, you just had to run everywhere, and that got kind of annoying. And then New Game Plus, they would lower the main bonfire amount in the game, so you had to rely way more on those seeds. So New Game Plus players got annoyed, so they lowered that, and again, they added in game modifiers, so you could choose how many of those they remove, or you could just let the game be as it originally was. In the beginning, multiplayer was not very stable at all. It was kind of clunky. People would disappear and it would lag a bit. Now it's much more stable in that regard too. So overall, the optimization in almost every area has been significantly increased. And then in general, the game had a lot of cool things about it, like the spells, the weapon variety, and that's only been enhanced with this. They've added like 8 new spells, which is cool. And then overall, the tweaking of the damage and stuff. I went through a new run of this game and it just felt nice. It almost felt like I'm playing Dark Souls 4 in a way. Now, it doesn't feel as good as a FromSoft game, but I think the combat feels great. So in general, if you're looking for another Souls-like game, especially one that kind of mimics Dark Souls in a way with build variety and an interconnected map, I really do recommend Lords of the Fallen in 2024, especially because it's always on sale now too. You're not going to be spending full price. What's also cool is you can now go to these vestige points and you can do these boss rush modes. Now they have modes where you could go through a rush of different bosses and it's pretty much a giant challenge and you get cool items and rewards, or you could just choose to refight any of the main bosses through the game. This is just really cool. I've pretty much been sitting here the last couple days refighting my favorite bosses, and since they've balanced the game more, these bosses feel like a real challenge, which just enhanced the experience overall. So Lords of the Fallen has been really fun for me, and I'm like, dude, if there's more people who need like another Souls-like or the Elden Ring DLC, you know, they finished it and they're looking for something else to keep the itch going, I'm like, you guys gotta try Lords of the Fallen. I genuinely had a great time with it, and the only other game I considered close to FromSoft was Lies of P, which I still think is a lot better than Lords of the Fallen, but Lords of the Fallen is up there now for me, and it's been a lot of fun. So I hope this video reaches some Souls fans or action RPG fans who might be looking for something new. It's really cool, and I'm curious, has anyone had the experience I had where you played it on release? It was fun, but just such a mess, and then now you've played it in 2024, and it's just a whole different, clean experience? Well, if not either, let me know if you've just played it now for the first time recently. I'm really curious. Now, I hope you guys have a fantastic day. I'll see you in another video very soon. Take it easy for me. Peace.